Good morning, everybody. Today I'm going to be reading to you a book that's going to incorporate some of our science concepts into our reading. So yesterday you viewed a brain pop video that discussed Gregor Mendel and his work with the pea plant. And what he did was he realized that when taking seeds from tall pea plants and short pea plants and crossing them together, he found that only tall pea plants grew. But then when he continued his research into the next generation, he saw that some short pea plants did start to crop up again. And what he did after very extensive research was that he realized that on average, 3 out of every 4 pea plants that were to be grown were tall. That means that the tall plants were the dominant trait. They had the dominant trait, the tall trait, and the short plants were the recessive trait, meaning that it was less likely to grow. Today I'm going to be reading you a book that will incorporate some of these ideas into our reading. Okay, so I'm going to read it from my Nook actually. It's a book that I found. It's called You Are Unique, An Introduction to Genetics. Family reunions happen everywhere and on certain dates. Families gather and celebrate the joy of being reunited as one with other relatives. So the introduction here is telling us that we're related to our immediate families, our parents and our siblings, but then we of course have aunts and uncles and cousins, and then second cousins and third cousins and so on. So there are different degrees of relation, and we do share genes with those more closely related to us, but we also share DNA with all people and all living things. We trace our roots and share memories using letters, newspaper articles, pictures, and videos. So I hope that, I'm not sure you're going to be able to see, probably going to be a glare. Most elders will come up and say, "Look how tall you've grown. You got your striking bright blue eyes from your dad." If I hold it like that, okay, you can see a family tree being developed. You're so talented with a knack at dancing. It runs in the family. It's in the blood, genes. Try it. Genes. Genes are vital and the determiners of how our physical traits, like how we look. This is a picture of DNA, and DNA is in all of our genes. You are you and unique because of the composition of genes. Genes are passed from one generation to the next in a family, so they also give you your family resemblance. They're like carriers that make you who you are and how and what you look like. The reason we look similar to our family members is because of our DNA, our genetics. We get our DNA from our parents, so we carry on their traits, their genes. We look a little bit different from our family members and siblings and parents because of what's called trait variation. So there are no two identical copies in nature, and even identical twins look a little bit different. The human body is made up of billions of cells. Each cell contains about 25,000 to 35,000 genes. So billions of cells, and in each cell, 25,000 to 35,000 genes in each cell. The information carried by these genes determines your traits, features, and characteristics. This is a chromosome. Everything is passed on or inherited from your parents, grandparents, or great-grandparents. Genes are also found in all living creatures, both animals and plants. As we learned with the pea plants, plants have genes too. It determines why a flower's colors are yellow or red or pink or orange. It determines the length of the plant. It determines how big the stem is. Like if you think about a tree, the stem is wood, it's bark. That's because of the DNA inside the seed of the plant that ends up growing into a full plant. Genes are microscopic. These cannot be seen by mere physical eyes. These tiny spaghetti-like structures are called chromosomes. These are found inside the cells. So everybody has 46 chromosomes. We get 23 from our mother and 23 from our father, and they go together in pairs. Chromosomes are in matching pairs. Hundreds and sometimes thousands of genes are in just one chromosome. The chromosomes and genes are made of DNA, the deoxyribonucleic acid. We normally hear or come across this term in sci-fi movies or in books. This is a strand of DNA right here. It goes together it's called a double helix, sort of goes intertwined like a rope. DNA. DNA is a long molecule that contains our unique genetic code. It contains 4 basic building blocks or bases: adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine. These go together to build proteins, which is what our bodies are made up of. Bases are nucleotides. These are held together by a backbone that's made of phosphate and deoxyribose. So at the molecular level, these bases make up our cells and our bodies. The DNA molecules may be thousands of letters long. These 4 different letters come in endless different combinations. So all DNA is made up of just those 4 bases. Go back one more time. And the 4 are adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine. And depending on the type of body part that the DNA is making up, for example, your eyes, your mouth, your ears, whatever the body type is, those DNA bases, those strands go together in different combinations, and the cells and the DNA tell your body how to develop and how to grow. However, only certain sets of nucleotides can fit together. Like puzzle pieces, A only connects with T, and G only connects with C. The cell reads the instructions on the DNA code that the different letters represent. Instructions are given on how to make a specific protein. Proteins are then used by the cells to perform certain functions, to grow and to survive. So here is a microscopic view of a cell. And inside our bodies are billions of cells that make everything up. Allele. While a section of DNA is called a gene, a specific pattern in a gene is called an allele inside the chromosome. For example, a gene determines the hair color. The specific pattern of the hair color gene that causes the hair to be black or blonde or auburn or whatever natural color at birth would be the allele. So my allele told my body that my hair color would be dark, a dark brown. About 99.9%, so that's almost everybody, almost all of the DNA, about 99.9% of DNA of every person on Earth is exactly the same. The 0.1% is what makes us all different from each other. Because all people are of the same species, we all share DNA, and we share DNA with all living things. In tomorrow's science lesson, you'll watch the brain pop on DNA. The genes in the DNA are responsible for passing on certain traits from parents to children. Some samples of these traits are characteristics such as eye color, height, and athletic ability. So we get eye color, hair color, height. We get those things obviously, but other things like coordination or like athletic ability, which means that you can control your body to do what you want it to do in terms of playing sports and things like that, you can get that from your parents too. In biology, which is the study of life, the study of heredity is called genetics. The basics of inheritance, meaning you get your things from your parents, your genes, have been discovered by scientists. Genes are actually inherited in certain patterns. Just a scientist studying with a model DNA. The genes your parents and grandparents have affect what genes you have. So you might be tall when your parents aren't very tall, but your grandparents or one of your grandparents might have been tall, and so that gene skipped the generation but came through in you, or vice versa. You might be shorter than everyone else in your family. You are unique in some ways, but also have something in common with members of your family. There are two types of genes, the dominant and the recessive. Every individual inherits two genes for each trait from their parents. Some are more dominant than others. Truly, you and I and each person on Earth is unique. This makes human anatomy a fascinating study. If we were all exactly the same, life would be rather dismal, less interesting, and even boring. Okay, and that is it for this book. So just keep in mind that when we are moving through science now, we're going to be talking about genes and and the different types of genes that are inherited from generation to generation. So today we talked about eye color, hair color, even the shape of your ears, your facial features, height, all those different kinds of things. We inherit those things from our parents. So this was a little bit of an introduction into heredity and the inheritance of genes. So I hope that you enjoyed it, and we will continue working with this in the upcoming weeks. Have a great day.